Hi guys, and we're here to review the new 2021 Range Rover Velar. Okay, it's not so new, it's been out for a while, but we're here with Land Rover today to look at a couple of cars, and this one in particular we're going to try in two engine choices. Now, this one's a diesel, don't switch off. I know that we're not interested in diesels in our market, but I am going to give it a go because it is quite interesting. It's the D300 and it's an MHEV, so that's a mild electric hybrid. It gets assistance from a 48-volt battery. We'll try this on road and we'll take it off-road just a little bit as well. But I know that the one that you're interested in and that I'm interested in is the P400E PHEV, which is the plug-in electric hybrid. That's a great engine, produces over 400 horsepower, around 400 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.1 seconds. So really looking forward to giving that a try. Not going to focus too much on looking at the practicality, the boot and stuff on this car because we've done that. It's still pretty much the same. There's a few tweaks in the front, notably the gear lever, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. The review for that is, we'll put it in the description below so you can find it there. So before we do that, make sure that you're subscribing to the channel, Motoring Middle East, and cool, let's get into this. I know I said we wouldn't bother to look at the practicality, but you know what? I thought let's just get in the back of the car and see what it's like. And there's an armrest. I love this this trimming in this car. The blue leather upholstery on the car. Vents down there. Heated seats at back here and power supply. There you go. No USB, but instead you get heated seats, which are quite handy. This driver's seat is set for me because I've just been driving this car, and look how much room I've got. So that's actually really good. So again, another reason why I really like the Velar, because honestly, I mean, it's about as practical as you need. I mean, with this panoramic roof, I've got loads of headroom, plenty of elbow room, isofix chassis anchor points, and loads of room down here and loads of room here. This is really good, and that's my driving position. It's the one to get. Let's give the diesel Velar a go. This is a 3-litre inline 6-cylinder Ingenium diesel, 8-speed automatic, 0 to 60 in 6.1 seconds. It's not bad for a diesel, is it? And top speed of 144 miles per hour. Fuel consumption, which you might be interested in, is up to 38.2 miles per gallon. Let's just take it for a run. Now, I've got it in dynamic mode, and I've got it in the sports for the gearbox. And I will just say that Velars are actually probably my favorite current cars in the Range Rover range, in the Range Rover lineup. I do like the Velar. I like the way it looks. I like the way the size of it, I think, is just about right. It's not too big, not too small. It's comfortable. It's easy to handle around town as well as out here. And this is where it comes into its own a little bit, actually, to be honest. There's a little bit of a more of a hot, hatchy version of a Range Rover, that sort of thing. And even in this diesel version, you know, it is quite extraordinary how good it actually is and how eager it is and how quick it is. Now, the only thing is, now I've got it in the sports mode, and I was earlier tempted to use it with the paddles, because the paddles are right here. But the only thing about the diesel is that it runs out of revs at just over 4,000 RPM. And really, you know, you need to understand it a little bit. So you need to drive it a little bit to really understand where it does its best work. So you see it's changing up at just over 4,000 RPM. I think it was nearly 4.5 then at that point, just short of 4,500 as it accelerated. But it feels pretty quick and it feels pretty agile. And you know, when it comes to the Range Rover lineup, I think that potentially the Sport also feels like this, but this one feels really settled. You know, it feels really planted, really settled, and it feels like more of a road SUV type thing. Although, you know, as we'll see later on, you know, it can do pretty good business when it comes to the off-road environment as well. But it thrives in an on-road environment, and it thrives in an urban environment as well. And it kind of thrives when you come out and you find, you know, twisty little roads like this, where, you know, the steering response is pretty good. I mean, we're not talking a lot of feel here, but the brakes are good, the acceleration is good, and it's actually really quite a surprisingly entertaining drive, particularly considering that it is a diesel version. To be honest, even the engine noise, you don't really notice that it's a diesel. The only real giveaway, like I said, that this is a diesel is that how quickly, you know, you get up to the revs, and, you know, it kind of runs out revs, you know, basically. So aside from that, yeah, this is quite a sporty car in the range, and I think it continues to underline the fact that the Velar lives as my favorite in the Range Rover lineup, even in diesel form. Now, I'm not really recommending that you go out and buy the diesel, although diesels are probably the best and the cleanest that they've ever been. But really, you know, the interest in diesels is running very, very low right now. So not only in the Middle East market, but even in Europe and in other places, because particularly in the UK, because the backlash against diesel pollutions, perceived or otherwise, like I said, they're cleaner now than they've ever been. So it's a little bit unfair now. So now that they've actually got diesels right, now that they've actually got them working exactly as they should, people are going off them. There you go. That's life for you, isn't it? But other than that, this is an astonishingly fun car and an astonishingly satisfying car. Aside from that, in here, it's very familiar. You know, if you've driven a Velar before, which I have, it all feels very familiar. I mean, I think there are some changes, but the only thing I really notice is the gear shift, which now is becoming common to, you know, the other Range Rovers, and also even in the Jaguar SUV range as well. They've got this treatment, which is this kind of stubby lever, which actually feels quite nice to hold, although sometimes it's a bit tricky to get into, like if you want to get into neutral and stuff like that, it's sometimes a little bit tricky to figure that out. But other than that, it's pretty good. Other than that, this remains as it was before, as far as I can tell, with a screen down here and a screen up here, which you can tilt adjust to how you want it, which is ideal, whatever angle is ideal for you. And then you've got all the modes down here, the sports, dynamic they call it, eco, and then all the off-roading modes down here as well. Touch buttons on the steering, like before, remain gloss black on this version, on the Velar, and otherwise it's a really nice place to be. The sill is a bit too high for your elbow, but you can hold it down here, and you're sitting inside this Range Rover. So this Range Rover feels a little bit different compared to others where you feel like you're sitting on a throne, you're sitting on the Range Rover. But in this one, you're sitting in it. So that's why I say this is like the hot hatch of Range Rovers. This is essentially what this is. So here we are, of course, a little bit of off-roading. Like I said, this being Range Rover or Land Rover, if you ever come up to their events, particularly if it's near their Land Rover Experience in Eastnor, which is where this is today, then inevitably there'll be a little bit of off-roading. And you would think, why would you take your very expensive and posh Velar, which I've already said is a bit like a hot hatch in the Range Rover range, why would you take it into these environments? Well, to prove that it can, you know, just to prove that it can. I mean, honestly, I don't think customers would actually do this, but, you know, at least they can. If they want to, they can do it. So that's, I think, what this is all about. And so we're in mud and ruts, and it's automatically raised the ride height of the car. We're in hill descent, which we've got at its lowest setting because it's pretty steep here, and the holes the holes are quite big, so you just have to be a little bit tentative as we go down here, just sort of feeling our way down this thing. So once again, I mean, you know, it's one of those, it's a Range Rover, so, you know, it's got all the terrain response systems, and it's one of those things that takes care of itself. We've got the cameras on off-roading as well, so it's also showing you what the wheels are doing, unlocking the diffs by itself, but also it's showing you each side of the car, so you can see where each wheel is going and where it is, and in relation to whatever the surroundings are underneath the front of the car or on the sides of the car. Pretty much handling everything by itself. As already mentioned, all good. I mean, this is a Velar, this is a Range Rover, so it's supposed to do this stuff. But honestly, I think it's more fun to be out on the roads chucking this around than doing this sort of stuff at low speeds. Still, spectacular view, if nothing else. And I can see it's useful because I got a tree trunk on that side, and it's useful to have a look there and see how close or how far I am. Pretty good stuff. Okay, so we're now in the P400E plug-in electric hybrid version of the Range Rover Velar. I've got it in dynamic, and I've got the gearbox in sports, and let's just see how this thing does. Let's deploy, was it 640 Newton meters of torque? Oh, wow, oh, wow, okay, yeah. A little bit of scrubbling there, nice. Yeah, it picks up acceleration really quickly, just as you would expect. I suspect they haven't, like, you know, I drove the F-Pace with the same engine recently, and probably I'll put the review up here. And that one, the engine noise definitely, I think, was enhanced, and there's a little bit more of the engine noise in that one than there is in this one. But nonetheless, this one certainly matches that one for punch, if you like. So certainly you get the same level of punch when you put your foot down, and you get all that power coming through. Now, you do have the modes in this car. Obviously, it's got all those terrain modes as well, and I've got it in dynamic mode, but you can have, so like now we're going through a village, I put it back into comfort mode, and you can see that the suspension just calmed down a little, just gets a little bit jittery. And the same thing I noticed in the Velar diesel, which is a mild electric hybrid, by the way, that one, so 48 volt assistance in that car. But you know, this is coil suspension, interestingly, because that was air suspension. This one definitely is a little bit more jittery, so I think the air suspension for comfort is definitely better. How it is for off-road, I don't know, we'll find out, I think. But the coil suspension, you just feel a little bit more of the surface. But you know, that's probably good in a sportier, like I said, you know, what I call the hot hatch of the Range Rover range. And in the modes you have here, for the plug-in electric hybrid version, you have hybrid mode, EV mode, and save mode as well. I've got it in save mode at the moment because I want to try, because it's got about range, showing a range of about 23 miles, full EV range. So I'd like to try that a bit later on, so I'll put it in save for now. Maybe after that I'll put it back into hybrid and give it a go like that. But I don't think it impacts the performance, certainly not from the demonstration just then. So even on kickdown, I mean, you got 6,000 R. I mean, I didn't even need to get that far. It's got the juice to give you some go at about, okay, so here I am, 4,000 RPM, kicks down and off it goes. But really picks up speed, really stable, really planted, really nice to motor along in this thing. And compression and turn, hard on the brakes because we're entering a village. Brakes are very linear, very smooth, good bite as well, good response as well, as compared to its heavier siblings, if you like. Definitely, you know, very, very nicely done. How that brake reacts, responds, feels really, really good. The steering feels a bit meatier in the, maybe because I've got it in sports mode perhaps, but it certainly feels a bit meatier. And that's not to say that there's any more feedback or feel coming through, but it's certainly responsive and accurate enough, you know, for this sort of thing. It really likes to jump off the line. I tell you what, it takes you a little bit by surprise. Well, I've got it in dynamic mode with sports mode, gearbox also in sports mode. And yeah, so at the junction, sometimes when you're pulling out, it's a bit more quick or keen than you might have anticipated. Good turning, good holding on, really nice. I like this car, it's really, really good. I do wish that maybe they had upped the engine noise a little bit, even if artificially, like they've done with the Jag equivalent as well. Anybody concerned or wondering, I must just add these are, yes, they are left-hand drive cars. Your eyes do not deceive you. That's because we are, this is technically an international event launch. So this is for international markets, and the cars are from international markets or from European markets, so they are left-hand drive, even though it's in the UK. Obviously for COVID, there's less travel on press events these days, so they basically bring the cars to you rather than take you to the cars. This is what's happening. No issues though, not an issue at all. Like I said, the Velar I've driven before, I find it really nice. I find it a good size, good compact size, especially for around town. Visibility is not an issue. Compact, but without sacrificing anything, you know. I mean, this still feels plenty spacious in here and comfortable, you know, and you feel like, you know, you're in something that's, you know, upmarket. I mean, this one has got really nice trim. Don't know if you can make that out, but it's really, really nice, soft trim. Really, I don't know what that is, but it's a really nice material that's on there. That is really nice. I like that. And then of course the piano black, kind of, not even piano black, but there's a little bit of wood grain showing through that panel. So it's really nicely done, really posh. Cool. Let's get back to driving this thing, because it flows really nicely. Just settles really well, you know. doesn't move around. I mean, doesn't sort of, the body doesn't lean or roll or anything like that. It just stays very, very well composed. You know, for something of this size, yeah, you can hear the suspension and you can feel the bump thump. But I trade that. I'd live with that in terms of, you know, getting this composure for a car of this type. I think that's a good trade-off. So now we're going through the town, and we are now in EV mode, and it's already dropped to 19-mile range from 23. Very quiet, very smooth, decent acceleration, no issues at all. Again, that stiffness and ride. You know, something that I found, I think it seems to be a commonality to me from my experience so far with electric cars and hybrid cars, a slight stiffening of the platforms, I think, that causes the ride to just be a little bit, I hesitate to use the word harsher, but certainly a bit more transmission into the cabin. So I think this is also suffering from the same thing, particularly because this is on coil suspension. I guess it's more direct anyway. You don't have the air suspension to cushion you. But driving it right now in battery mode, I can see it says EV on the dashboard. The rev is on 0, but it is showing me a blue bar, which I guess is indicative of how it's using the battery power. I can see it here anyway. So far so good. It's just switched from 19 to 18, and you can see that the batteries are powering the motor, which is powering the wheels. According to this graphic, the motor just here at the front and at the back. So it's got two, is it? Interesting. Whilst I think it's quite clever to have that facility to turn it into EV mode, like if you're in town or you're near a school or something like that, that makes sense. But I think the vast majority of time, and I suspect this will be the case, and I'm going to put it into hybrid mode. So I can see what's happening here now. I suspect the vast majority of the time, owners will probably leave it in hybrid mode and basically let it do its own thing. Because you want it to just keep itself topped up rather than plug in. Again, the whole plug-in thing, if you have a driveway at home and you can plug in overnight, then you can leave with maximum charge. That helps. But otherwise, I don't know, to me it just feels more hassle than it's worth. But quiet though. Now I believe the engine is running. No, it just kicked in there actually, so it was still on EV mode, so it's deciding by itself now what to do. And quite refined, just a slight rumble from the ground and through the suspension, but other than that, very smooth. But definitely, even whether in the UK or wherever you are, I think that it makes sense to go for the hybrid version, whether you're going to use the plug-in or not. Because this engine is great. The thing is, it's 2 liter. Don't be put off by that. The 4-cylinder, you think like 4 can 4 be better than 6? Yes, it can. So 6 can be better than no. V8s are still king. V8 still rule. But the 6s are slightly starting to go, okay, where do we fit into this whole thing? Although having said that, the earlier car was a 6-cylinder diesel. But this car seems to combine the attributes of a petrol car and electric car very well. And also the attributes of a family car and a sports SUV very well indeed as well. Now, one of the things I found is that you do get a little bit of understeer, but it's understeer under power. So, just to be a bit tentative about how you apply the throttle through a corner, and it's generally fine. But it does grip very well. And the steering is very good. And on this rough road, again, because of the car and the nature of the car, it's like, it copes with the undulations and with the bumps and the ruts very, very well indeed. Something that if you were in a hot hatch, you might be concerned about or worried about, but in this car, it ceases to be a problem because you know that it can handle this stuff. After all, it can do off-roading, right? So here we are, of course, bit of off-roading, this being Range Rover, except that we're on the coil suspension compared to, we're doing exactly the same course that we just did in the diesel Velar, and now we're doing it in the petrol one, except that now we have coil suspension rather than air suspension. Again, like before, got it on mud and ruts, and got my hill descent on. you can certainly feel a lot more now. You can actually tell quite a difference between the air suspension and this car. This one definitely, you can feel a little bit more of what's going on, and the movements that are taking place beneath you, that's for sure. Just taking it really gently because I don't want to bang it around too much, but seems to be doing all right. And again, I've got my cameras on as well, as before, and they do help you quite a lot in just being able to see what it is and where you are and what you're doing. Steep climb up here. This is interesting. This is the steep climb, and this is the bit where you can't actually see in front. So now this is when you actually start to use this system here, because you can't actually see what's in front of you, literally, because you're facing up into the air. You don't know what's on the other side. So at least this way you can, like here, okay, so here we go, you come over that, and it's a sharp, come over the ridge, and it's a sharp turn, and then it's straight into a mud bowl pretty much. So fortunately with the camera, it just helps you a little bit to be able to know, gives you a little bit more confidence, really, I should say, to see where you're going, or to know that you know where you're going. So Range Rover Velar, what do we think of it in 2021? Well, I've always said that Velar is my favorite Range Rover in the lineup at the moment. It's the one I'd get, probably, especially living in the UK. And I think that trying these two engines out, I'd say I would probably get the P400, this engine, rather than the diesel. That's not to denigrate the diesel, but the diesels are falling out of fashion a little bit, and this one is the performance one, definitely. Not convinced about the whole plug-in arrangement, but hybrids are definitely the way to go. So for me, this is the one that makes sense, and it's probably the one that I would get, and I would definitely consider getting one of these. I just like the way it looks, and I like the way it drives and handles. Really good, nice car. Anyway, let me know what you think of the Velar, and what you thought of the video, the review, anything else you want to talk about in the comments above below elsewhere, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in the next video.